Okay, we'll get started, but I think a few more people will be coming in as I'm talking. So hi everyone, so good to see so many of you here today, and welcome to the third session in our co-production webinar series, which is called Co-Production in Practice. Thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. These webinars are really open to everyone, whether co-production is something you're already familiar with, or whether you're just beginning to find out more about it. You're very welcome to join us today. Before we kick off, I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping. So we're using Zoom webinar for today's session, and that means you'll be watching from the audience view while the panelists and I appear on screen, so you won't have a camera or a microphone. We won't be running a Q&A in this session, but I will put my email address in the chat box so you can get back in touch with me afterwards if anything comes up, and I can put you in touch with any of our speakers today as well. We also have a British Sign Language interpreter with us today, Victoria. You'll see her on screen alongside the speakers. If you prefer, you can click the interpreter button, which is at the bottom of your Zoom window, and that will bring her up in a separate window. Might make it easier for you to kind of resize or reposition her if you need to. We also have closed captions, which you can select the CC button on the bottom bar as well to bring those up. So before we get started with today's webinar, I will introduce myself. So I'm Liddy, I work at Disability Rights UK. We're a disabled people's organisation, which means we're led and run by disabled people, and we work across the UK to champion disabled people's rights. My role here is co-production lead, which really means I spend a lot of my time talking about how we can work better alongside people with lived experience as part of our work. And this is really what co-production is all about: professionals and people with lived experience creating and delivering things together. And the reason we're running this series is because last year we launched our resource called the Co-Production Narrative, aimed at the sports sector to embed co-production in practice. But really it's useful and it's open for anyone who's trying to embed co-production within their work. The response has been great, but as we all know, resources can be quickly kind of forgotten about once that excitement fades away from the launch day. So this series is really here to keep the momentum going, keep the discussion going, and help to bring the narrative to life. I will put the link in the chat. If you do want to take a look at the narrative in your own time, you're very welcome to do so. The topics for these sessions were co-produced with the same group who helped shape the narrative itself. And we're keeping these sessions really short, so they'll only be about 30 minutes, hopefully making them a lot easier to fit into your day as well. We'll be recording them so you can also watch them back in your own time. And then at the end, we'll be doing a quick poll as well to gather your feedback. So if you could spend a couple of minutes filling that in, we'll be really grateful. It will help us to continue to deliver webinars like this and develop resources as well. So our third webinar today is all about co-production in practice, which is an opportunity for organisations to share how they've embedded co-production into their work and the processes they've followed. We're really excited to be joined by Martino and Ella from International Mixed Ability Sports, otherwise known as IMAS, as well as members of the Include to Improve team, Francis, Anna and Suzanne. So thank you to all our speakers today. That's enough of me talking now. I am going to hand over to Frankie to start the conversation, and thanks again everyone for being here.
Thanks. Yeah, good morning everybody. I'm Frankie and I work for Activity Alliance on the Include to Improve programme. Like mentioned, there's three of us today from the Include to Improve team. There's obviously myself, Suzanne, who's one of the peer advocates for Sport for Confidence, and Anna, who also works alongside me at Activity Alliance. I'm just going to give a very quick overview of the programme, and then I'll hand over to Suzanne. The main aims of the Include to Improve programme are to increase and improve opportunities for disabled people and people with a long-term health condition to gain employment, volunteering opportunities, or participate in the sport and physical activity sector. Now, one of the main benefits of Include to Improve is that we created two networks for the programme. we have a strategic partner network, and we also have a lived experience network. And what this has helped us to do is basically we surveyed both networks at the beginning of the programme. We were able to ask both networks around barriers and challenges or good practice they might face. For example, the lived experience network, any challenges they might face as a disabled person trying to get into the sector, but also what barriers and challenges or good practice our strategic partner network might face as employers or again trying to recruit into their sector. When we surveyed both networks, it meant we were able to gain 3 main themes that were the sort of common denominators that came up in all of the responses. This was recruitment, workplace adjustments, and attitudes and stigma. So we were able to shape and take direction for both of these networks as to what we would look into for the future of the programme. Now, for the benefit of the webinar, obviously we're talking about co-production, so we'll be obviously talking about our lived experience network. So I'm going to hand over to Suzanne, who can go a bit more into detail about that. Thanks, Suzanne.
Thanks, Frankie. Hi, everyone. So I'm going to focus on one specific example from our programme, which was the development of our community guidelines as a way of illustrating how we approach co-production in practice. When we began building our lived experience network, we knew we didn't want to simply invite people in and then impose a preset way of working. We wanted to create a space that felt safe, respectful, and genuinely collaborative from the outset. That's why we chose to co-produce our community guidelines together. The purpose wasn't just to create a document, it was to establish shared expectations, shared language, and a shared understanding of how we would work together. We wanted people to feel ownership of the space and not like they were stepping into something already designed without them. In terms of how we did this, we used a variety of engagement methods. Some people contributed in live online discussions, others shared feedback via email, and some contributed through our online lived experience network hub. This is a secure members-only platform with discussion threads where people can comment, share experiences, and engage with peer advocates like myself and the other 2 members of the team who respond and support discussions. Accessibility and flexibility were really important to us. We recognise that people engage differently and that energy levels, confidence, and access needs vary. We drafted the guidelines collaboratively, then circulated them again for feedback before final approval. That step was important, not just gathering input, but checking that the final version genuinely reflected what people had said to us. So prior to this webinar, we reviewed the DRUK co-production tool, which highlights principles such as shared power, clarity of purpose, value in lived experience, and building relationships. And we realised that our approach to the community guidelines naturally aligns with these principles. One of the key values in this process was recognising that lived experience isn't just something you consult, it shapes how the work happens. So contributors influence the tone of the document, the language we used, and the expectations we set around respect and accountability. If I reflect briefly on learning, we've also seen where we could strengthen our approach. So, for example, in developing our workplace adjustments resources, we involved the network later on in the process, which resulted in a very large amount of feedback. That experience highlighted the difference between co-creation and co-production and reinforced for us the importance of involving people as early as possible, especially when working with a large and open network. Overall, the development of our community guidelines helped set the foundation for how we share power within the programme. It wasn't about handing over control completely, but about being intentional in creating structures that invite genuine influence. And that continues to be something we're learning and refining as the programme evolves. And I'm now going to hand over to Anna, who's going to talk a little bit more about the challenges and our top tips.
Thanks, Suzanne. I'll start with the challenges and finish on a positive with the top tips. So we've learned so much along the way and we're under no illusion that it would all be plain sailing. So here is a couple of challenges we faced to illustrate this. So the first one was around ensuring the recruitment of a range of people to the network with different demographics and characteristics to ensure the lived experience network was reflective of the community that we are looking to support. So really would suggest to cast the net far and wide, make use of existing contacts that you might have, but also think more widely too, to engage people that you aren't currently reaching. Another challenge was finding and consistently using multiple ways to engage with everybody, not just the keen beans, although those people really are the driving force behind some of the work that we're doing. We have recently created a new survey aiming to understand people's experience of being involved in the network, what works well, what could improve, and how involvement has affected them. So we make sure we continue to work together in the most suitable and meaningful way for us both. And the last challenge was around just being aware that things may take longer when using a co-production approach. So build in time for this. This can be a balancing act in relation to meeting milestones and deadlines, but the outcome we've found is always much more impactful. So it's definitely worth doing. So moving on to our 3 top tips. Number 1, ensuring what you're trying to achieve is well resourced. So we've created a remuneration policy allowing a choice of monetary or gift voucher remuneration for people's time in any engagement activities we are running. We have budget specifically in place for this and dedicated staff to manage both relationships with the network members and the processing of these. You can find this policy on the Activity Alliance website, and Liddy's already kindly put the chat in there. So if you want more information, please have a look at the template that we've used. The last couple of tips is making sure you get buy-in around the ways of working. So our organisations, Activity Alliance and Sport for Confidence, have cultures that are very accepting of co-production. We have management support and an openness about the flexible nature of the programme. And last thing from me is just being prepared to work flexibly as ideas change and evolve. Don't have a set path in mind and just allow for that programme direction to be shaped by the lived experience that you're engaging with. Thank you very much. Back over to you, Liddy.
Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing that. Just a reminder as well, I can see a couple of hands up, but we are not doing Q&A in this session, just because of the short nature of it. So anything you want to kind of email me about, please feel free to do that, or put something in the chat if it's something I can help with at all. Okay, thank you very much. And then now we're going over to Martino and Ella. So over to you, Martino.
Thanks, Liddy, and thank you everyone so far. A really interesting discussion that really resonates with us. So my name is Martino. I'm one of the co-founders and co-directors at International Mixability Sports, IMAS, and I'm joined today by Ella. And do you want to just say your role, Ella, so that people...
Hi, I'm Ella. I'm an IMAS trainer and a non-executive director.
Thank you very much. I'll just give a brief introduction about IMAS and mixability, and then with Ella we can discuss a bit more about how we, well, I would say embedded co-production into IMAS, but actually we started before the organization existed, because our background is education, and mixability comes directly from people who were excluded from community sports, and they wanted to play sports alongside their friends, their family members, without being separated, classified, or graded. Anthony, who we consider our founder, has got CP and learning disabilities, and he wanted to play full contact rugby. And you can imagine, 15 years ago, going to a club and saying, I want to be smashed on a pitch, I want to go and drink afterwards. And many people said, ooh, this is very risky, this is very dangerous. So, being teachers by trade, we thought that, we would support him asserting his rights. So we wrote to, national governing bodies, to local clubs, and that's how we started. So basically saying, we all need help. We all belong to our communities, and we got rights to do whatever we think is suitable for us. We have independence. We need to make decisions for ourselves. So from very small projects, we now roll out what we think is the opportunity for people with and without disabilities to play alongside each other in community sports with the same rules and regulations, and that's been taken up across 30 different countries and 20 different sports. So, but the important thing here is that everything is led by local people and local champions. We share a manifesto, we share with the movement some ideas, but people implement it in the way is meaningful to them. And that is visible in the kind of sustainability of the projects, because some teams have been going on for 15 years. There are 40 plus members. They train regularly every week. They attend function. They put money into their clubs. And that's, we believe, how sport should work. I mean, it's important there are different options. But in terms of, because we're talking about co-production, it's important for us to understand that started from someone's vision and ambition, and Anthony created a space for many more peers to be active on their terms, on our terms, according to his own experience. But Ella, perhaps we can talk about, the engine of the organization and, the element that we retain. And I think, the things that we do pretty much every Wednesday. Do we want to perhaps mention how we work?
Yeah, one of my roles is an IMAS trainer, and IMAS trainers meet up weekly in an inclusion in sports and co-production group every Wednesday to use our lived experience of disability and past experiences of barriers that we have had in participating in sport. We plan and co-produce resources and presentations that we co-deliver to grassroots sports clubs, SEND and mainstream schools, healthcare professionals, and national governing bodies. We also have students on placement that attend our weekly meetings that we involve with the group and educate them about disability and the work that we do. The students are social work students, OT students, physio students, and other healthcare professionals. Two IMAS trainers with lived experience of disability, including myself, sit on the IMAS board as non-executive directors, bringing on knowledge directly within the heart and leadership of IMAS.
Great. And perhaps, Ella, if you're comfortable, what does it mean to you? I mean, how does it work for you, co-production, in terms of your journey?
For me, I've always been excluded from sport. Being autistic, I was excluded from sport at school. And then going into adulthood, I didn't know sport was for someone like me. So in my late 30s, I found out that a mixed ability rugby team, that was for everyone, whatever their experience, ability, or disability, was starting in my hometown in Somerset. So I went along to there and joined the first session there. And I started as a player who needed quite a bit of support. I couldn't even catch a ball or anything. And I went on to become captain of the mixed ability women's team, and I now help other players. I then went on to become an IMAS trainer and then non-executive director. And also now I work with other organisations such as Disability Rights UK, and I help to produce the co-production narrative, which I was able to directly contribute using my experience of co-production from IMAS.
Brilliant. And the co-production narrative really was a great value alignment, with the work that IMAS does, and I'm sure Lydia shared the link as well. In terms of just all the things that Activity Alliance and Sport for Confidence said, I mean, resonates with us. So it is not a straight journey. I think, but you need to trust and embrace people's voice, and just trust that, the lived experience can actually shape the future. And for us, it's very important actually to challenge the status quo, especially the sports sector. The sport and physical activity sector has been dominated for centuries by same voices, same demographics, has been heavily organized and regulated. And I think there might be a role for that. I mean, at the elite level, but at grassroots level, there's no reason why people shouldn't be just part of their communities in their own terms. So I think we need to challenge that model, as we need to challenge, the medical model. I mean, assume that people know, what's good for them and what their ambitions are, and health and social care staff, practitioners, and professionals are there to support, people's lives of independence. In that sense, co-production, we think, is a very powerful tool to, challenge a bit that foundation, and making sure that more voices are heard, more voices are represented, but that meaningful change, I think, is brought about, and I think something that can last for the future. There is a co-production report that we produced a couple of years ago, and I'll send it to Liddy. So if you are interested in a bit more details on the way that we work, I think that there's plenty of information there. But I'll hand it back to Liddy.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone. You all did very well with timings. I know it's not easy trying to fit everything into such a short space of time, so thank you. And thank you, everyone, for coming along today. Hopefully you found that really kind of thought-provoking and inspiring to listen to. I'm just going to bring up a really short poll just for you to fill in. It should only take about a minute. That's just so we can get a bit of feedback on the webinar today, and it will help us to continue to develop webinars like this and shape kind of future work we do as well. If you have any follow-up questions, like I mentioned, please feel free to get in touch with me, and we will send over resources as well afterwards from all our speakers. So the next sessions are lined up. We've got one in a couple of weeks, which is all about the challenges of co-production. And we also have a webinar around the evaluating co-production as well. So please feel free to book on and to attend them. Everything's being recorded, so if you can't make it on the day, we will also share the links to the recordings as well. And yeah, thank you again, everyone, for being here and for joining this conversation with us. And thank you again to our speakers as well. Hope you have a good rest of the day.